Another week of preseason football is down underway as well. We got two games tonight. I believe it is the
Packers and Broncos.
Packers and Broncos and the Saints and 49ers, both at 8 p.m. tonight. So if you're Packers, Broncos, 49ers, or Saints fan, tune into that. Injuries are starting to take a toll on teams. I think the biggest one right now is one of the teams that we covered last week with the Vikings. JJ McCarthy tore his MCL, not his MCL, Kyle, his meniscus. In their first preseason game, he opted to get the full surgery right away, so that puts JJ McCarthy out for the season. Sad.
Yeah, that's I would say with that, like the Vikings are in a stage where they're more win now ready than I think people are crediting them. And Sam Darnold's looked good according to sources and people close to the Vikings organization. And they're all saying that this is actually Darnold's perfect fit with Kevin O'Connell on this offense. I just don't see how this year it's truly detrimental to the team. But I see long term, that's where I really think this is going to impact the Vikings franchise. Is this going to alter the course of growth and development for JJ McCarthy? Probably. Because I could have seen a situation where he steps on the field week 6 or 7, um, and he's not getting those reps, obviously, and building the timing and work with the receivers. But yeah, I think I've talked to a couple of Vikings fans about it, and they're acting like their world's over. And I think long term, yes, but I think this year, I really don't think it affects their chances
Yeah,
of wins and losses.
I told one of my best friends who's a Vikings fan, from high school, like, hey man, like, yeah, having your rookie quarterback that you want to see how he reacts to the NFL and how he responds to certain things, like, yeah, you kind of lose that, but you're not playing you right now, you're not thinking about a Super Bowl. You're thinking about, hey, maybe we could have made the playoffs or things like that. Sam Darnold does look good, but you know, potentially you get a higher pick now in the next year's draft to add another piece to the puzzle, whether it be an offensive lineman or stack the defense for them.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I don't think their playoffs is out of the equation for them this year, but yeah, like I don't think they're going to the Super Bowl. Like they're not looking at Super Bowl as like their goal this year. You know?
A couple other updates on teams we've already covered. CD Lamb remains out of camp, trying to get a contract out of Jerry Jones's pocket. It doesn't seem like that is on the precipice of Jerry Jones's priorities right now. That is basically the biggest news out of that. Jahmyr Gibbs hurt his hamstring for the Detroit Lions recently. I don't believe he played in their preseason game yesterday. Any other big ones come to mind? I know DeAndre Hopkins got hurt. He's out for like 6 weeks. Um, but we were probably gonna talk about him today, whether you want to do the South divisions or the West divisions.
Due south.
We can do the South. Okay. We'll head into the South.
Yeah.
We'll go over the South divisions. We'll start with the NFC South. Obviously, last year we had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the winner of this division. Um, Led by Baker Mayfield. They had a pretty solid season and then ended up winning the first round playoff game between them and the Philadelphia Eagles. Pretty solid game. They beat them pretty easily. Then this offseason they go into not really rebuild mode, but they needed a Baker needed a contract. Baker gets signed to a 3-year, $100 million deal, the $100 million man. And they also another free agent that was they had that big piece for them was Mike Evans. He signs a 2-year, $52 million deal. Um, and a key piece on their defense, Antoine Winfield. He signs a 4-year, 800, not 800, $84 million deal, inks him long term to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Big piece for them. So the Buccaneers, They didn't make a huge splash in free agency. They didn't really need to, but they were able to keep the pieces that they have in their team, on their team, and kind of take another step forward, see what Baker Mayfield can take them to. What do you got?
I mean, what picking off of what you were saying on the Bucks, I think the only thing they really are concerned about, if you're looking at the other, the NFC South ecosystem, is the Falcons and what they're building on their defense. I mean, what they just get Justin Simmons for like 8 million a year to side with Jesse Bates at safety. And like 2 years ago, everyone would have said Justin Simmons is a top 3 or 5 safety in the league. And I still think he's has a lot more in the tank. And then you pair that with Matthew Judon from the Patriots in that trade for a third rounder. So they're telling everyone they're in a win now mode. Um, and I think they're obviously, I would probably say, it really depends on how Kirk Cousins looks, but I would put them maybe over the Bucks as far as favorites for the division. And but yeah, I think the Bucks. I really think they maxed out what they were able to do last year going into the playoffs, and I think that was they performed and exceeded expectations for sure. And I think now they might need to, they're an aging team. They're not necessarily young, and they got to see exactly, if they can continue to build off of that, or if that was really just them, being fortunate for that type of season.
I do agree with that. And then also something to think about is when you win the division, the likelihood of you having an easy schedule again is very slim to none because you're going to play the best teams from the year prior. So they do have a tougher schedule than a lot of the teams that they have that are in the division. Um, if we want to go through the schedule, oh, it comes out looking like this. They start week one with the Commanders. Second week they go to the at Lions. Do you want to rally off what you think while I go through this?
Yeah, if you're, can you read the games off?
Yep, I got you. So week one, home against the Commanders.
That's a win. So they're
Second
one and
week of
zero.
the season at Lions.
That's a loss. 1-1.
Third week of the season, home against the Broncos.
That's a win. 2-1.
Fourth week of the season, home against the Eagles.
That is a good game, and I'm gonna say it's a loss. 2-2.
Fifth week of the season at Falcons.
I'm gonna go with the loss. I think that's a really pivotal game early in the season, but that's 2-3.
At Saints the week after.
That's a win. 3-3.
Next week they are home against the Ravens.
That is a loss. 3-4.
Next week of the season they are home against the Falcons.
That's a win. 4-4.
Next week of the season they are at Chiefs.
That's a loss. They're 4-5.
Home against the 49ers.
It's a loss. 4-6.
Bye week and then at Giants.
Win. 5-6.
At Panthers.
6-6. It's a win.
Home against Raiders.
That's a win. 7-6.
At Chargers.
That's a loss. 7-7.
At Cowboys.
That's a win. 8-7.
Home against the Panthers.
Home against the Panthers. That's a win. 9-7.
Home against the Saints.
That's a win. 10-7.
You got them going 10-7. There you go.
Yeah. What do you?
I got them at 8-9.
Okay. I think that's probably more likely what they're going to do. I don't think they're going to beat the Cowboys. Um, I mean, I probably would toss and turn on that one, just back and forth on a toss up. But yeah, I think that's best case is 10-7.
Yeah, I mean they play the two top teams from both conferences last year with playing the Chiefs and the Ravens, and they also play the 49ers and Lions this year. So that's pretty tough to go up against. Like, and then
Yeah,
you have other
yeah,
playoff teams on your schedule with the Cowboys and Eagles. Commanders, they've made progress. I wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders shock them with how Jaden Daniels has looked in the preseason.
I know.
I understand that it's preseason, but I would say that the likelihood of the Commanders starting fast and then having like trouble later on in the season by watching some of those games, it looks more promising to me than before.
Yeah, I I agree. I think there's promising for the Commanders, but not to stay on that topic. But I don't know. Mayfield's got moxie, as you know,
Yeah, he does.
so they might pull out some of those games that we're just drawing up and chalking up as losses against a team like the Niners or Ravens. I think the Buccaneers can beat anybody, honest, and that's the NFL. Obviously, any team can beat any team any given Sunday. But I really do think the Bucs have a talented roster. It's just I don't think they have this playmaking depth that they can, keep up with some of the best teams.
This is true. I don't think that they'll be able to hang with the 49ers or the Chiefs. I think they can make a game with the Lions. They kind of did in that playoff game. I do have them losing to both the Cowboys and Eagles. I think that they could win both those games, but I think that both of those teams are better than them.
Yeah,
We'll head into Atlanta. That's the kind of the talk of the trade. I just wanted to start with the division winner, but the talk of the town right now in this division is the Atlanta Falcons with signing Kirk Cousins, the big, big ticket item that they got, signing him to a big contract this offseason. Um, but then in the draft, what they end up doing, kind of a play like out of left field. They draft Michael Penix with the eighth overall pick. A lot of people didn't see that one coming. NFL GMs didn't see that one coming. Is it a good move? Who knows? Michael Penix has looked pretty good in NFL preseason these last couple weeks. Remember, just to remind everyone, Kirk Cousins is coming off that Achilles injury, even though they signed him to the 4-year, $180 million contract. Um, and to talk about the Falcons some more, they've had pieces around their quarterback the last couple of years. They drafted Bijan Robinson out of Texas. They have Kyle Pitts, who everybody thinks he's underutilized. They have Drake London. They have pieces on the roster that can be, you know, take it up a notch, to say the least. And then you mentioned the pieces on defense that they just added. They traded for Matthew Judon from the Patriots. They signed Justin Simmons to a pretty low contract, a 1 year though. I could see him staying there. Who is that safety that they had last year that was it he made like three interceptions. I remember watching in PS Tavern with you, and every
Jesse
week
Bates.
Jesse Bates. Pair him with Justin Simmons. That's a great back end.
Yeah, and that's really I think I cut out maybe on the part I was saying it earlier, but I think Simmons still has a lot left in the tank. They got him on a really affordable deal for I think it's 8 million, and then Matthew Judon, the Patriots for a third rounder. They already got another big name defensive end. I'm trying to remember who they got in free agency earlier, like in March. But they are building up their defense, which is exactly what they needed to do. They already have a lot of playmaking threats on offense, and so I think it's obviously win now for the Falcons, and I think they're going to strongly be in position to win the division.
I don't have a big name defensive end on this free
I
agency tracker.
I think it might have been. Daniil Hunter that was supposed to sign with them, and then he went to the Texans. And I think that's where I keep messing that up. They might
Yeah.
have. Did they draft? Who did they draft?
So in the draft, the Atlanta
Oh,
Falcons,
obviously Penix.
they picked Penix first overall. Well, in the first round, they got Rook Orhoro from
Okay,
Clemson,
Clemson. Yep.
and then Brandon Dorlus from Oregon,
Oregon.
and then nobody really else jumping off the page here
Yeah.
on the defensive side of the ball. And then the two
I,
guys that they signed in free agency, I haven't heard of.
yeah. I didn't love either Aurora. I liked Dorless a lot coming out of college. I thought he was going to be. He kind of reminds me of like a Reek Armstead. He's tall, physical, but I don't think either of them are pass rush, types of guys.
From your like what you look at, have you seen if Kirk is going to be ready for week one?
I haven't heard that he's not, so I assumed he is. I would assume there would be a bigger discussion right now in the media if Kirk Cousins wasn't ready for week one. So for all intents, I assumed just from he's practicing. So I assume in 3 weeks he'll be good to go. But that would even be more dramatic because it would lead to speculation. If Penix plays well week one or week two, what happens to Kirk
Yeah,
Cousins?
it's kind of weird because he is not listed on their injury report.
Yeah, and there's jokes that like if he ever got benched or something because Penix was playing so well, the team that needs a quarterback, you could say, is the
The Minnesota
Vikings.
Vikings. Yeah, which is very crazy. I don't think they'd take that contract though. Um,
Yeah,
Little cleanup though. Atlanta Falcons right now on FanDuel listed at over under 9.5 wins. Just looked at the Buccaneers. FanDuel has them at 7.5 wins. Both of us hit the over for the Buccaneers, but judging a book by its cover right here, looks like FanDuel is thinking that the Falcons will win the division.
yeah,
So we'll go through the schedule right now. Falcons got a tough game to open the season. They play the Steelers.
that's a win.
Second week of the season, they go at Eagles.
That's a really good game. I'm gonna go with the loss, 1-1.
Third week of the season, another tough one, home against the Chiefs.
It's gonna be a closer game than people want, but it's gonna be a loss, 1-2.
Then they have home against the Saints,
Win, 2-2.
home against the Buccaneers,
Win, 3-2.
um, at Panthers,
Win, 4-2.
home against the Seahawks,
Win, 5-2.
at Buccaneers,
Loss, 5-3.
um, home against the Cowboys,
I'm gonna go with win, 6-3.
at Saints,
Loss, or yeah, I'll go loss, 6-4. They're
at
gonna
Bron
they're gonna lose, of course, one game to the Saints.
at Broncos,
Win, 7-4.
bye week, and then home against the Chargers,
I'm gonna go with a win, 8-4.
at Vikings,
I'll go with a win, 9-4.
at Raiders,
I'll go with a win, 10-4.
home against the Giants,
Win, 11-4.
at Commanders,
I'll go with loss, 11-5.
home against the Panthers.
Win, 12-5.
You got them going 12-5. Kind of crazy.
I don't love it. I don't like that I have that, but I on paper, I think all of that is fair. I think you could probably say the Saints doesn't make sense, but I think I think that's such a competitive matchup that it always ends up being,
I got them
a one
going
and
nine
one.
and eight.
Okay, what other games we differ on? The Cowboys?
Yeah, I got them losing to the Cowboys, losing to the Giants, losing to the Commanders.
I have them losing the Commanders. The Giants, though, what the
Yeah,
hell?
I mean, when we did the Giants, that's how it panned out.
Oh, okay.
I'm making
Yeah,
sure that
I'm.
the ones I picked already
Yeah,
match.
yeah.
Unlike
I'm.
you.
Well, I feel like I'm doing a good job of it because I'm trying to make sure it's, you know, I'm going very logical. Like basically, better team wins in every scenario, except for that Saints game that I just said the Saints will win. But fuck it, we'll figure it out.
Fuck it, we ball. All right, so you're much higher on the Atlanta Falcons. I'm much lower. I don't know.
You think they're gonna win the division? You're not that much lower. You
I have
just
them
don't
at
think they're
nine
gonna
and eight.
be.
I don't know. I don't know what the Saints or the Panthers are going to be right now. I haven't done them yet.
They're not gonna be 9-8. I promise you that.
Oh, the Falcons aren't going to be 9 and 8, or those other two teams aren't going to be.
Those other two teams.
Okay. All right. I'll go into the Panthers. Obviously, a really disappointing year for the Panthers. They drafted Bryce Young, first overall in the 2023 draft. They have a very disappointing year. Didn't really have many pieces around him. His best wide receiver was an aging Adam Thielen. Not really a good offensive line for him to like stand behind. Not a very good running back for him to hand the ball off to. Had Miles Sanders, coming from Philadelphia. That didn't really work out. Kind of nuts. They trade for Deontay Johnson from the Steelers in the offseason to get him, I guess, a number one weapon. And then they drafted, what was his name? I'm also pulling it up right now. They drafted Xavier Leggett from South Carolina. A lot of people love him. He's been blown up on social media. They also drafted the backup, or not the backup, the running back from Texas, Jonathan Brooks, and they draft Jatavian
Yep.
Sanders from Texas. I thought Jatavian Sanders was a steal in the draft. I wanted him on the Browns. I think he's going to be a great tight end. So they put pieces around Bryce. Couple signings they had was they signed two guards to shore up the middle of the offensive line, Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. Uh, Totally forgot about this one too. They signed Jadeveon Clowney to their defense and also got Clavin Chasen from he was on the Jaguars. They also got Derek Brown, re-signed Derek Brown to a longer contract, but they do trade away Brian Burns to the Giants. So they did shore up their defense a little bit, but they also got rid of one of their best defensive players. What do you think about the Panthers? Oh, and they bring in the offensive coordinator from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in order to be the head coach for Bryce Young.
Yeah. Yep. I with you going through all those additions and subtractions, I mean they did have a good offseason. And I think everyone can say on paper something's good or not, and then it can completely prove itself right or wrong come season. But I I would say there's optimism for sure. You really have to allow Bryce Young to play quarterback, and he didn't even have the chance to last year when his offensive line was so terrible, and he kind of had like a receiving core that was just awkward and thrown together. That didn't really feel like it was something that defenses had to respect. With Adam Thielen being old and just running third down gadget routes and shit. But I mean, now they have pieces. They have offensive threats. Uh, it's going to be an offensive mind that's going to have to get them into a system that can really allow Bryce Young to succeed. So hopefully Dave Canales can do that for them. But yeah, I don't think they're gonna be a winning team this year, but I think they'll be better than they were last year.
I think they'll be better. I don't think that they'll be jumping off the page, especially when you go through this schedule right now with them.
Yeah, let's what's week one?
All right, week one at Saints.
Win,
Damn. Home against the Chargers.
loss,
At Raiders.
1-1. They are gonna win that game. They're gonna go 2-1.
Home against the Bengals.
Loss, 2-2.
At Bears.
Loss, 2-3.
Home against the Falcons.
Loss, 2-4.
At Commanders.
Loss, 2-5.
At Broncos.
Win, 3-5.
Home against the Saints.
Loss, 3-6.
Home against the Giants.
Win, 4-6.
Bye week. Home against the Chiefs.
Loss, 4-7.
Home against the Buccaneers.
Loss, 4-8.
At Eagles.
Loss, 4-9.
Home against the Cowboys.
Loss, 4-10.
Home against the Cardinals. Don't you
Loss,
dare.
4-11.
At Buccaneers.
Loss, 4-12.
At Falcons.
Loss, 4-13.
I have them at 3-14.
Yeah, I mean, I think again early teams don't really get in a groove yet, and it always seems like the Panthers always do well like the first 3 or 4 games of the season. Like maybe not last year, but like 2 years ago or something, they were like 3-0, and like the year before that, they were like a good record starting out, and then they just you have hope and optimism as a fan, and then they just collapse because they're just not good.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those first early on games is like kind of getting the wheels back onto the whole thing. And some teams kind of come out slow, so you could catch a sleeping Chargers, you could catch a sleeping Bengals. But probably around that week 5, week 6 time period, teams start putting it together. So I don't think they're gonna catch the Falcons or the Bears sleeping. I think they could beat the Broncos. It'll be tough in Mile High. They could potentially beat the Giants, maybe steal one against the Buccaneers later on in the season, but I don't see them beating the Chiefs, Cowboys, Cardinals.
Yeah.
All right, we'll
Is
head
that your?
to what?
I was just say like, was that the game you differed on me with? Was the Giants game?
Yeah, I have the Giants winning that.
Okay.
And then I flipped the Saints games. I think they'll win at home but lose away.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll head to Nolans, New Orleans Saints. Um, Somehow navigating the cap brilliantly. I don't know what to expect from this team. They have aging pieces all around the roster with you could start with Lattimore on the outside. You can then go to Cameron Jordan on the line. You could then go to their safeties and talk about Tyrann Mathieu and how he's aging. Derek Carr's not getting any younger. Alvin Kamara's not getting any younger. Is Michael Thomas even relevant anymore? Their probably best player
Yeah.
on the outside now is Chris Olave. I love Chris Olave, but there's not much else around him anymore.
Yeah. I mean, Rashid Shaheed is a name, but he's also like he was really good last year, and I think he's considered. If you look at like rankings, and I've seen some articles where I was like, oh, what do they have the Packers? Like a Madden, for example, he's rated higher than all of the Packers Madden receivers in Madden, which is like that doesn't mean shit. But watching him play against the Packers last year, he was fucking good, and I think that's another player. Uh, I'm curious about just what they that's like you mentioned, you don't know what to expect with them. I think there's probably some Saints fans across the fan base that are like very optimistic and think that this team can sneak into the playoffs. And then I think there's a very wide range between that and people that think they're going to go 2-15 and need to just sell house. And I really think a lot of that, not all of that, is going to go on to what Derek Carr is and what type of Derek Carr we see. And I like rooting for Derek Carr. I think he's someone that's like some you want to see succeed, but it's just difficult to envision like Alvin Kamara's like is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be a key piece? Who's their offensive coordinator? I don't know off the top of my head. But like Dennis Allen's a defensive mind. Their defense wasn't great last year, but they have really good pieces that are old, but they still are, they can be a very competitive team. But it's just I feel like this whole predicting schedule thing, I've kind of just written off the Saints. So my perspective of them is that they will not gel and not connect and like become a winning football team this year. But I think there's another story and narrative to say that they could become, on the other side of that.
I
But
don't think they're going to be on the other side of that. I just realized Michael Thomas is a free agent. He's not even on a team. Clint Kubiak is their head coach. I do like the Kubiaks as coaches. I think that like
you mean
they're
he's their offensive coordinator, right?
yeah, Clint Kubiak.
Okay, yeah.
You were asking who their offensive coordinator is.
I know you just said head coach.
Oh, my fault.
I'm not.
Um,
I was like, what?
Over under 7.5 wins for the Saints. Yeah, I just don't know like what they are going to be. I think I'm gonna lean towards them being on the weaker teams in the NFL this year. I don't really trust Derek Carr anymore. He did have that one season with the or 2 seasons with the Raiders, but
Yeah,
that's far off now.
yeah. I would say like that's crazy that they have the same win total as the Buccaneers, but that's probably because the Buccaneers are that's a very difficult schedule they have, so I could see that being part of the equation. But anyways, I'm ready for the schedule.
It's not an easy one. Um, First week of the season, home against the Panthers.
Loss, right? I chalked it up as a loss.
You chalked it up as a loss. Just saying.
Yeah,
At Cowboys,
loss. 0-2.
home against the Eagles.
Loss. 0-3.
Um, at Falcons,
Loss. 0-4.
at Chiefs,
Loss. 0-5.
home against the Buccaneers,
Loss. 0-6.
home against the Broncos,
Win. 1-6.
at Chargers,
Loss. 1-7.
at Panthers,
Win. 2-7.
home against the Falcons,
Win. 3-7.
home against the Browns.
Uh, Loss. 3-8.
Bye week, home against the Rams,
Loss. 3-9.
at Giants,
Win. 4-9.
home against the Commanders,
Law. Win. 5-9.
at Packers,
Um, I'll go loss 5-10.
home against the Raiders,
Win 6-10.
at Buccaneers.
Loss 6-11.
Yeah, I've got them with 4 wins.
Damn.
I don't see it. Like I think they'll split with the Panthers. I think the Panthers will be able to pull one out against them. They have a hard schedule. Cowboys, Eagles, internal to the division. Falcons have gotten a lot better. Then they have the Chiefs, Buccaneers twice. Maybe they sneak out a win in one of those Buccaneers games, but then you play the Chargers. Browns are a better team on paper. Rams, and then yeah, you play the Giants and Commanders. I think you'll split those two games, and then you got the Raiders and Packers.
Yeah,
Like
it's
that is not an easy schedule.
there. The NFC South does have a difficult schedule this year for sure. Um, but it's just I think that's a unique team that could go 3-14, or they could go 10-7. Like
I wouldn't be
legit.
surprised if the Saints trade away all their players.
Well, I think that's what would happen if they're 1-6, like I had them. You know, come trade deadline time.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just yeah. I think their coach will be fired too by mid-season if they're like 1-7. You
Yeah,
know.
Dennis Allen is not a good head coach, and continue to employ him.
Yeah, well, that's because they got who's the Benson family.
Yeah.
They're old as owners, right? They're probably like resistant to change.
All right, so to recap here, I've got the Panthers being the worst team in the NFC South, um, with 3 wins. The Saints aren't too far ahead with 4 wins. Buccaneers with 7 wins, and then the Falcons winning the division at 9-8. Cole's got the Falcons going 12-5, winning the division, and the Buccaneers right behind them. Also, he is low on the Saints and Panthers, just like me. We'll head to the AFC South. Do you have a preference of what team you want to start with?
I'm down to start with the Texans, who were on top.
Texans are on top. Texans had a crazy season last year and pulled out the win of the division to take it from the Jacksonville Jaguars, kind of coming out of nowhere. CJ Stroud was a rookie. Nico Collins tore it up at the end. Tank Dell had a good season before breaking his leg. And then on the defensive side, they ended up putting a formidable team together on the defensive side, and then they add pieces to the puzzle like Daniil Hunter. I am pulling it up right now. Aziz Al-Shir, and then they add Joe Mixon to the mix. In their backfield. Um, sorry, I'm still pulling it up. Yeah, they pull a lot of dudes in. None really jumping off the page. Derek Barnett, Jeff Okuda. Oh, and then I'm missing the biggest one. Totally forgot about this. How could I forget? They decided to trade for Stephon Diggs from the Buffalo Bills. Um,
Yeah,
really not giving up much in order to get him, but they add Stephon Diggs to the puzzle. A lot of people are making the meme jokes of he's going to be the reason why CJ Stroud falls off this year because he's going to demand the ball. I was watching their preseason game yesterday, and he threw a quick slant to Stephon Diggs, and the Houston Texans announcer was like, "I don't know if Josh Allen could get Diggs the ball that way," and I was like, "Dude, shut the fuck up." Like, that is just outlandish talk. On FanDuel right now, Houston Texans are set at 9.5 wins over under.
wow. I would I would say over on that. I'm just looking at it.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a good
if
bet.
they got 6 games against their internal division, obviously Jaguars, Colts, and Titans. I think they're better than the Colts and the Titans on paper should easily be able to handle those teams, but I don't know why. But the AFC South always has trouble with each team internal to the division. I think they'll probably end up splitting with the Jaguars. I think last year they beat them twice.
I think that this AFC South this year, the 2024 edition, is going to be fun to watch. I think the Anthony Richardson, the Colts have a good roster. The Titans have. I still can't believe they let go of Mike Vrabel, but Will Levis is a fun player to watch just because he's such a gamer and he's not going to be great. I don't think the Titans are going to be solid this year, but it's just I think the whole division is going to be fun.
I do agree with that. I think that this division could, I don't think, like, obviously the Texans are the clear-cut favorite, but I think this division could end up going a little hectic.
Yeah,
We'll go through the schedule right now, and you pick your wins and losses. Texans start the season at Colts.
win 1-0.
Then they are home against the Bears.
Really good game. Win 2-0.
At the Vikings.
Win 3-0.
Then they're home against the Jaguars.
Good game. Win 4-0.
Tough game here. Home against the Bills.
Win 5-0.
At Patriots.
Win 6-0.
At Packers.
Win 7-0.
Home against the Colts.
Win 8-0.
At Jets.
Loss 8-1.
Home against the Lions.
Loss 8-2.
At Cowboys.
Win 9-2.
Home against the Titans.
Win 10-2.
At Jaguars.
Loss 10-3.
Bye week and then home against the Dolphins.
I'll go loss 10-4. No, win.
At
10
Chiefs.
11-3. Uh, at Chiefs is a good one. I'm gonna go
In
win
Arrowhead.
12. I'm gonna go win 12-3.
In December.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Home
not
against the
playoffs.
Ravens.
Uh, loss 12-4.
At Titans.
Win 13-4.
I got them at 12. I got them losing
But
to the
isn't that great?
Bills. Losing to
Isn't
the
that crazy
Bills.
that
Yeah.
9 wins, 9.5 wins is the over under? Like they're gonna get 10 wins this year.
Yeah. I mean, where they could slip up, I think that they could easily lose both games against the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars aren't that far off. It depends on how Trevor Lawrence performs, obviously, but I don't think the Jaguars are that far off of like on paper from them. I think that the Packers game, I know you like to be modest about your Packers, and I know that you just picked them to lose against this Texans team, but I could see them beating them. The Jets, you had the Jets beating the Texans. I could see that being a loss. Cowboys, I feel like that could potentially be a loss. The Dolphins, I think that could be a loss. Um, So it could easily sway to the other side of the knife if it could, because if they end up losing those games and they don't beat the Chiefs and the Ravens, Lions and Bills, that's one, two, three, four more losses, and they'd be 9-8.
Yeah, and again, I don't think every team that we're talking about, we're looking at it on paper, and not everyone's gonna beat the teams they're supposed to beat. Like
Exactly.
that's inevitable. That's inevitable. So there's gonna be losses that they shouldn't lose for every team. Um, yeah, I can see, but I just think they're gonna be better than they were last year. And
They should be better
some
than
of
they
the
were last year.
yeah,
Which team would you like to pivot to?
you want to do Jaguars?
Jaguars. All right. Jacksonville Jaguars, kind of a weird offseason for them. They signed Trevor Lawrence to a 5-year, $275 million contract, with $200 million of that being guaranteed. Was he deserving of that? Who cares? He was the number one overall draft pick for them. He's brought them to the playoffs one or two times. You know, maybe last year was a regression year for him. I think last year he might have been playing injured a little bit more than he led on to believe. They make a couple of additions to the team. They signed Gabe Davis to a 3-year, $39 million contract. They bring in Mitch Morse from the Buffalo Bills as well, 2 years, $10.5 million. Josh Allen, yeah, there's a second Josh Allen in the league if everybody forgets. They signed him to a 5-year, $150 million extension. They bring in Eric Armstead for a 3-year, $51 million deal. And then they add little pieces around the roster, like a Ronald Darby, a Trey Flowers, a Terrell Edmonds, and a Darnell Savage on the defensive side to shore up that secondary. Uh, Doug Peterson is still the head coach, but it really just lives and dies with Trevor Lawrence. Is Trevor Lawrence going to be the Trevor Lawrence we saw him at Clemson for all those years underneath Dabo Sweeney? Obviously, they also lose Calvin Ridley. A lot of people didn't think that duo meshed very well. Travis Etienne had a great season last year. People are picking him high on their fantasy drafts, thinking that he's going to have another incredible year, being able to run the ball and catch the ball out of the backfield. But as I said before, this is all about Trevor Lawrence, man. And the Jaguars obviously believe in him. That organization paid him all that money. They made him the first overall pick, so they are all in on Trevor Lawrence.
If you had to win a game with a quarterback in the playoffs, just one game, would you pick him or Kirk Cousins?
Ooh, that's tough. Because obviously, like Kirk is known to not play well in primetime games. Um, I guess I'd take Trevor.
Yeah, I just think they're similar in terms of I think what they're going to when you look at their careers 20 years from now.
But I
Now, I don't think
think
they're similar styles, but I just think they're going to be known in the same pedigree of above average starter.
I think this is the
That's
perfect
it.
year for the Jacksonville Jaguars because this is the year that like team people have kind of written them off a little bit. Where like last year they expected the big jump in between going toe to toe with the Chiefs in the playoffs the year before. They thought, they make a few additions here and there. They got Calvin Ridley back from suspension. They thought that the Jags were going to make a big jump, win the AFC South again last year. It ended up not going that way. The wheels kind of fell off at the end of the season, but they also had a pretty tough schedule towards the end, and they just couldn't get right. I think, but that puts them in a good spot where they're maybe the underdog and the less talked about team right now, and that could, create a sleeping giant formula for them.
Yeah,
Right now on FanDuel, Jacksonville Jaguars are listed at over under 8.5 wins for the season.
I think that's about right.
All right, let's get into it then. Week 1 at Dolphins.
Loss.
Week 2, home against the Browns.
That's a really good game. I'm going to go loss 0-2.
Third week of the season at Bills.
Loss 0-3.
At Texans.
Loss 0-4. Oh my God.
Home against the Colts.
Win 1-4.
At Bears.
Loss 1-5.
Home against the Patriots.
Win 2-5.
Home against the Packers.
Win 3-5. I'm going to that game, so they're going to win.
Oh yeah,
Inevitable.
that's why I flipped it. That's why I have it on mine as the Packers losing.
Yeah.
Hang on. At Eagles.
I think I put loss for them. So three that puts them at 3-6.
Home against the Vikings.
Win 4-6.
At Lions.
Loss 4-7.
Bye week. Home against the Texans.
Win 5-7, I believe. Or yeah,
Okay, then at Titans.
win 6-7.
Home against the Jets.
I'll go win 7-7.
At Raiders.
Win 8-7.
Home against the Titans.
Win 9-7.
End the season at Colts.
Loss 9-8.
9-8. I got them at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9-8.
That's a tough schedule.
That first 6 weeks, not easy. At Dolphins, home against Browns, at Bills, at Texans. I think they could
If
steal
they
one
go
against the
two,
Browns.
if they go 2-2, I mean, I think you want to play the Browns early this year. Like that's, I don't think their offense is going to look great right away for Cleveland. So I think that's a good time to play Cleveland. And if they go 2-2 in those first four games, that's a win. If they can just go 500.
Yeah, because the schedule does get lighter in the second half, even though they do have um at Lions, Texans, obviously, and then Jets in the second half.
Yeah,
So interesting how that will play out for the Jaguars. I did have them going 0-4 in the beginning of the year. Obviously, I had to like stick with what we've already predicted with those teams, so 0-4 for them. We'll head to Indianapolis where the Colts are getting their star quarterback back. I don't know if I should call him a star though, because he wasn't really a star in
that's done
college.
it.
He was just, a very good not even a very good quarterback. He was just impressive. He was very talented and had raw talent. Anthony Richardson, obviously last year he only played about 3 games before getting hurt. What did he tear his rotator cuff?
Yeah, he something with his shoulder surgery. I know he tore his rotator. It might have been
Yeah,
something
he
with
had
the
to
shoulder
have
though.
he had to have shoulder surgery. Um, Weird offseason for them as well. Not really many signings in order to add to the roster. Draft, I feel like they had a pretty good draft. I feel like a lot of people liked what the Colts did. I'm trying to check it out right now. Indianapolis Colts. Oh yeah, they got Latu from UCLA, the dude that was had torn his ACL a couple times. Well, doctors told him to stop playing football,
His
but he
neck
kept playing
problems.
football, has some neck problems. So it could be good, could be bad. Who knows? But I think the home run hit that they had was Adonai Mitchell from Texas, another speedy wide receiver on the outside to pair him with Michael Pittman, who they signed to a 3-year, $70 million extension. A couple other things that they did was they signed DeForest Buckner to a 2-year, $46 million deal. And then not really much jumping off the page. A name that I see on this list that um, gives me flashbacks is Ronnie Harrison. He used to play for the Browns, wasn't very good. I kind of hated him. Also, former Brown, Joe Flacco, 1-year deal, $8.7 million. Bring him in to, I guess, be the backup behind Anthony Richardson, potentially play some games if Richardson goes down. Who knows?
Did you say
Col
18 or 8? 8
8,
18
8.7.
million or 8? Oh,
8.7.
okay.
It's the same
Good.
exact contract the Browns signed Jameis Winston to.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um, so Colts right now on FanDuel listed at 8.5 wins. They do have a talented roster. Who's their
Holy shit,
coach?
8.5.
Jonathan
Their
Gannon?
coach is uh No, Steichen, right?
Oh yes, Shane
Yeah.
Steichen,
Gannon's the
Cardinals.
the Cardinals.
Yeah, I always mix the two of them up. Um, yeah, 8.5 wins, and they got to play the teams internal to their division. You kind of heard a couple of the teams that they'll end up playing by us going through the schedules for the Jaguars and the Texans, but we'll kick it off right now. They'll start the season home against the Texans.
Loss. 0-1.
Loss at
Big
Packers.
loss. Loss. 0-2.
Loss home against the Bears.
Loss. 0-3.
Home against the Steelers.
Loss. 0-4. It's a good game.
At Jaguars.
At Jaguars. Loss. 0-5.
At Titans.
Win. 1-5.
Home against the Dolphins.
Loss. 1-6.
At Vikings.
Win. 2-6.
Home against the Bills.
Loss. 2-7.
I just lost it. At Jets.
Loss. 2-8.
Home against the Lions.
Loss. 2-9.
At
This year.
Patriots.
Win. 3-9.
Bye week at Broncos.
Win. 4-9.
Home against the Titans.
Win. 5-9.
At Giants.
Uh, Win. 6-9.
Home against the Jaguars.
I think I split, didn't I, with the Jags? 7-9.
Maybe.
I'll go 7-9. Yep.
7-9. Did I
That's a
miss a game? Right? It should be seven and
fuck it.
ten.
7-10 is what I have. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got them going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6-11.
Isn't 8.5 extremely high for them? That's
I don't
that's
know
like
what Anthony Richardson is. I don't. And at Florida, he was okay at best. He honestly reminds me a lot of Joe Milton, where like
that's what I was about. I was literally about to say he's Joe Milton, but more athletic.
yeah,
Like he's like a
even
twitchier
is he
version.
more athletic than Joe Milton though?
Yes, he's twitchier for sure.
I
I
guess,
think
but like
their arm talent's very similar. I'm assuming, I'm not going to say I've been around either player, so I'm not going to speculate, but I'm assuming his talent with his arm, he's a little bit more polished and accurate. But like Joe Milton started more games than
Anthony
Anthony
Richardson did.
Richardson in college. Yeah. So I find it fascinating how like one year, that type of player is a top 5 pick, and then another year that player is a third day 3 pick.
I
You
think it
know,
was more because we saw more of Joe Milton in college than Anthony Richardson. So like there's untapped potential, I guess, for Anthony Richardson. Like because Joe Milton coming out of high school, like he was the talk of the town. But I don't know what it was for Anthony Richardson. But I literally see the same player.
yeah, people that I mean Tennessee didn't even like Joe Milton. So I think I don't think Joe Milton's gonna be a star by any means. I think he's gonna stick around in the league. I think if he wants to, but I don't think he's gonna be a starter. Um, yeah, I mean not to talk about Joe Milton, but I think Anthony Richardson, Shane Steichen, I really think he's going to be a really good coach and a good offensive mind, and I mean he's proven it. And he had a good offense last year with the Colts, and they made a lot out of not a lot that they had. So, I mean, they got Jonathan Taylor. I should be more bullish on them, but I just don't see them getting over 8 wins.
It's a tough schedule, one. Two, I don't know what Anthony Richardson is. Like Who's like an athletic quarterback that just like it didn't pan out? Like I don't know why Brett
Trey
Hundley
Lance.
is coming coming to mind.
Brett
Um,
Hundley.
yeah, I don't know why he was the first one that came to mind.
He's he's not at all like he's like the
Deshaun
most
Kaiser?
average. Deshaun Kaiser is another one that's, but again, not a 6'6" specimen. Like Cam Newton and Joe Milton are probably the two guys you can think of
Jameis
that are like
Winston?
that. Jameis Winston's not a thought. Are you shitting me?
He was.
Winston was like he he was like fat in college. People were like, oh, he's his downside was like Mariota is so much more athletic, and Winston's a lot more just like a pocket passer like Eli Manning. And he's gotten a lot more like physically fit the last 7 years, but he's still slow as shit.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of
He beat me.
somebody.
He beat me in a race, so I don't want to shit talk him. But
Jameis Wood?
oh yeah,
All right, we'll
no
head
doubt.
to Tennessee, talk about the Titans a bit. They end up firing Mike Vrabel, which was a pretty big stunner to all of us. Thought Mike Vrabel would just, be there forever. But obviously they did end up changing the front office. The GM partial part of the way through Mike Vrabel's tenure as head coach, it seemed like there was a rift between the front office and Mike Vrabel in like the direction that they wanted to go with the team. Couple things that Mike Vrabel didn't like. I'm pretty positive he did not want to trade AJ Brown away to the Philadelphia Eagles. Um, I don't know why they did that, but they did. And then especially now this offseason, they signed Calvin Ridley to a 4-year, $92 million contract. Ew. Um, they end up trading for L'Jarius Sneed from the Chiefs. Obviously, a cornerback one. They traded away ooh, a third round pick and swapped seventh rounds in order to get him, and then signed him to a 4-year, $76 million deal. Two guys that jump off the page for me for their signings in the free agency, also on the defensive side, are Jamal Adams signed with them for a 1-year deal, and Chidobe Awuzie, 3-year, $36 million. Another piece that they added on the offense is Tony Pollard from the Dallas Cowboys, 3 years, $24 million. What is Tony Pollard? We saw him last year. He wasn't that great. They did draft Tajay Sharp 2 years ago. Um, and he did have like a little bit of, come onto the scene last year, was backing up Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry obviously moves on to Baltimore. Um, this is another what are the Tennessee Titans? They bring in Brian, is his name Brian? Brian Callahan? I know it's a
Brian,
Callahan.
who?
The
Yeah,
coach, his name, his I want to say is Brian Callahan.
offensive line coach.
No, that's what is his name? Coach of Tennessee Titans. Brian Callahan. I'm right.
That's yeah.
His dad
I
is
forgot
Bill
that.
Callahan, who is the offensive line coach of the Browns, and he brought him over to the Titans to do the same thing.
Okay. Yeah,
I I didn't like how the Browns lost Bill Callahan, but it's okay.
yeah. What's who they got week one?
So the Titans right now on FanDuel, they're slated at over under 6.5 wins. Right now, week one, they are at Bears.
Loss.
Loss.
0-1.
0-1. Home against the Jets.
Loss 0-2.
Home against the Packers.
Loss 0-3.
At Dolphins.
0-4.
Bye week. Home against the Colts.
0-5.
At Bills.
0-6.
At Lions.
0-7.
At Patriots.
1-7,
At Chargers.
1-8,
Home against the Vikings.
1-9,
At Texans.
1-10,
Home against the command. No, at Commanders.
1-11,
Home against the Jaguars.
1-12,
Home against the Bengals.
1-13,
At Colts.
2-13. I split with the
At
Colts.
Jaguars.
2-14,
Home against the Texans.
2-15.
Yeah, I don't have when I was going back to the other teams that we've already done, we were going through this schedule. Right now I
I
have
was
them
just giving them a
winless.
win against.
I have them winless.
You have them 0-17.
Yeah.
I think that's
Um,
like, like a flaw of doing it by division because I'm trying to make a case for the Titans to win games, but then I'm like, yeah, I definitely picked the Jets to beat them. I definitely picked the Jags to beat them in these games. So then it's like I'm forced to say that they're going to be. I think they could realistically be a 5-win team, but and win some games they're not favored in. But on paper, I really think it's like a 2-15 type of year.
yeah, I think that they could win against the Patriots, but I picked the Patriots to win last 2 weeks ago or whatever. That I think
I
now they
think I
could.
did too, so I should be 1-16.
I feel like they could now beat the Vikings. They also could probably potentially beat the Commanders. And then I think that they could split with the Colts, maybe steal one against the Jaguars too, or the Texans. But we just I templated it that the Jaguars and Texans sweep them.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
I mean, it's
I don't think
logical.
that the Titans can beat the Jets, Packers, Dolphins, or Bills or Lions. I think I'm high on the Chargers this year, obviously with Harbaugh, but maybe they steal one against the Bears week 1.
It's just weird because you can't tell me they're the worst team in football. You know, like
Yeah,
you can't tell me the Titans are the worst. They have a good roster. It's just like weird to think about.
I think
Um,
that I think that the worst teams in football this year will probably be like the Saints, the Panthers, probably the Titans. Mm, I thought the Commanders were going to be up there, but it looks like Jaden
the
Daniels is
Patriots,
going to be better. The Patriots could potentially be one of the worst
the
teams in
Giants.
football. I don't think the Giants are going to be that bad, but Daniel Jones has looked terrible in the preseason so far, so maybe I'm completely wrong on that one. Um, who did we just talk about? Oh, I said the Vikings could be one of the worst teams.
The
Now,
Raiders, maybe.
now that JJ McCarthy's hurt, I was thinking the Raiders too. Maybe the Broncos if Bo Nix doesn't have a great year.
Yeah, yeah. Like I'm trying to think about who are going to be the awful teams. Like who's going to be really bad this year, and it's hard to project that. I think for some cases.
I think we talked about three of them today with the Panthers, Saints, and Titans. Those potentially could be three of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, yeah. I agree.
I think that the Titans have more upside. The Saints are probably in the middle there, and then the Panthers are at the low end. But realistically, that could completely flip if Bryce Young comes ready to play and shows out like he did at Alabama.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that'll do it for Eminem going deep this week. Next week will be the last week of preseason predictions and um, things of that matter, and then the week after that will be week 1, baby. It is fucking right here. We can almost touch it. Next week, obviously, college football will start. That'll bring a smile to a bunch of people's face. faces. So that's it for Eminem going deep this week. We will catch y'all later. You guys have a great weekend and week ahead of you.